Is your excess sebum causing hair loss? Let's take a deeper dive into how that oily, waxy substance might be affecting your scalp. First, to clarify, I said sebum, not. Sebum is an oily, waxy substance that is produced by your sebaceous glands. And you have sebaceous glands throughout your body, but they are most prevalent on your face and on your scalp. And they help maintain skin's healthy structure. They help moisturize the skin and help the balance of the scalp environment. But it's when this sebum becomes excessive that it could contribute to hair loss. But more on that in a bit. Let's talk a little bit about the other factors that could be contributing to male pattern baldness. By far, the leading factor in whether you may experience hair loss in your lifetime is due to your genetics. That's right. You can blame your mother's father, your father's mother. It doesn't really matter. It's in your genetic coding that you may have this sensitivity to a hormonal byproduct called DHT, which stands for dihydrotestosterone, and it is a byproduct of testosterone, which we all know is a crucial hormone in both males and females, especially for growth and sexual reproduction. Now, those that have a genetic sensitivity to DHT will typically see miniaturization of hair as they age, and this miniaturization and sensitivity to that DHT on the scalp can eventually kill off the growth of hair, leading to the common male pattern baldness patterns that you see. Genetics aren't the only reason someone may lose hair. Poor lifestyle choices like heavy drinking or heavy smoking, a poor diet can also be leading factors in early or late stage hair loss. In addition, your scalp condition is very, very important. A healthy scalp environment is conducive to healthy hair growth. For those that might suffer from conditions like seborrheic dermatitis, psoriasis, dandruff, these can be contributing factors to why you may be losing hair. And it's that last point that I want to spend a little more time on because I feel like it's underserved and many people might not be aware that the condition of their scalp skin is leading to their hair loss. So I found myself interested in how the condition of your scalp skin plays a role in hair loss because I myself, when I was first starting to lose hair, noticed that my scalp was flaky, it was itchy, it was red, and all of this I truly believed was why I started losing my hair at an early age. I found out later that it was due to a condition called seborrheic dermatitis, which is an inflammatory skin condition which will really cause havoc on your hair and the natural balance of your skin on the scalp. And that brings me back to what we touched on in the beginning part of this video, which is sebum. Now, sebum is a natural substance that's secreted by your sebaceous glands, and it helps moisturize and hydrate the skin. This is a natural part of your physiology and your biology, and there's nothing wrong with a little bit of sebum on the scalp. But in those that might produce excess sebum, or in other terms, showcase things like oily scalp or flaky scalp, this can be a problem. As excess sebum accumulates on the scalp, it becomes thick, waxier substance that can actually clog the hair pore, strangle the hair shaft, and it also plays host to certain bacteria and fungus that can lead to seborrheic dermatitis, psoriasis, dandruff, dry skin. All of that creates an inflammatory skin environment, which is just not conducive to hair growth. And so I wanted to see if there was a correlation between high levels of sebum, high levels of oiliness and waxiness on the scalp, and hair loss. And it turns out that there's some good information and good data that supports the fact that if those that have an excess secretion of sebum might be suffering from hair loss. There are a couple of studies that actually looked directly into how the sebaceous gland and the sebum that it excretes can play a role in male pattern hair loss. Let's take a look. The first study I want to share with you was done in Japan, and they were looking directly at the relationship between the size of the area of the sebaceous gland and how that contributed to hair loss, or if it contributed to hair loss. So remember, the sebaceous gland sits right in the dermis layer, right next to the hair follicle itself, the hair bulb itself, and it's what secretes the sebum onto the scalp and helps moisturize and oil the hair shaft. And remember, this is completely normal. It's good that your sebaceous gland secretes this substance. It helps create a nice, natural, hydrated environment. The problem is when that sebaceous gland goes into overdrive and produces too much that we might be seeing a correlation in relationship to hair loss. So this study in Japan took a look, and what it found is those individuals with extreme hair loss actually had a larger sebaceous gland area, meaning the area in which that sebaceous gland sat in the dermis of the skin was enlarged. It didn't necessarily show that it secreted more sebum, but it did show that the sebaceous gland, which we know is what produces the sebum, was larger, and that area connected and next to the hair follicle itself was larger. So there is definitely a relationship there. You'll see in the results it says the sebaceous gland area of the androgenic alopecia group was noticeably increased. Conclusion here that the overgrowth of the sebaceous gland and its relative preservation of the follicle stem cells suggests that changes in the sebaceous gland could be an important factor in the pathology of androgenic alopecia. So there's definitely a relationship there, and that's what this study found. So now let's look at a second study, this one done over in Indonesia, and this one actually investigated directly the amount of sebum on the scalp and how that correlated to the severity of hair loss. So as you'll see, what they did is they found that those in the early to mid stage of hair loss actually didn't show much increase in sebum levels on the scalp, that it was pretty normal. However, those that were showing hair loss severity of like a Norwood 5, 6, or 7, which is later stage hair loss, that there was actually a substantial increase in sebum levels on the scalp. So their conclusion is that there's a very strong correlation between sebum level and the severity of the androgenic alopecia or the baldness. Okay, and you can again look at both these studies. The link will be in the description. So both these studies show, whether it's the sebaceous gland or the sebum that sits on the scalp, that there is definitely a correlation and a positive correlation between the amount of sebum on the scalp and how that might introduce excessive hair loss or a severity to hair loss on the scalp. So remember, it's important to know that a certain amount of sebum on the scalp is perfectly normal. It should be doing this. It's a crucial part of your physiology. It helps hydrate the scalp. It helps nourish the hair. It's when the sebum becomes excessive that it could lead to inflammation on the scalp. And when there's inflammation on the scalp, it is less likely that you may respond to certain hair loss protocols and solutions. So how do you know if you're producing too much sebum on your scalp or that there's excess sebum sitting up there? Well, there's a couple of signs you can look for. If you still have hair, look for if your hair feels greasy or flat after washing it. You might also see signs of dandruff or dry skin. Itchy, flaky skin or red skin is also a clear sign that there may be excess sebum sitting on the scalp, which is why you're seeing those symptoms. And if you do find that your scalp and your hair is a little bit too greasy and oily and that you're suffering from some of these conditions, there are certain things you can do. One is not to overwash. It may seem counterintuitive, but actually overwashing or exfoliating your scalp and your skin can actually strip the skin of its natural barrier layer and its natural moisture, which will actually kick your sebaceous glands into overdrive and make it produce excess and more sebum. So you want to wash, but you want to do it in a way that is easy on the skin, that is not overdoing it. And you want to use things like clarifying shampoos. You want to use products that don't strip away too much of the oil. And you also don't want to use a lot of heat. So when you take your showers or wash your hair, using lukewarm water is best practice. And also if you're styling your hair, you don't want to overheat it with hair dryers, blow dryers, and you want to be careful of using products that might cause irritation on the scalp. Remember, a lot of these styling gels and sprays can actually cause contact dermatitis, which will lead to inflammation. And like we've said, inflammation really creates an unhealthy environment for hair growth. The other really important thing, and this is true for so many things, is to stay properly hydrated throughout the day. Drinking plenty of water is always a good idea, but in terms of your scalp health, it will help keep your skin hydrated so that your sebaceous glands, your oil glands don't need to produce excess moisturization, excess sebum, so that doesn't build up on the scalp. So drink your water. If you need to carry around those gallon tubs, do it. Always a good policy. Lastly, if you notice that you might have seborrheic dermatitis or psoriasis or an underlying scalp condition, it's never a bad idea to head over to your dermatologist and get an assessment by them. I suffered from seborrheic dermatitis. I was able to really deal with it and treat it. Once I got my scalp micropigmentation treatments, I noticed just the natural cutting and buzzing of my hair helped eliminate some of that buildup on the scalp and really helped reduce the inflammation that I was noticing. But always go check with your dermatologist. There are certain types of medicated shampoos and topicals that might be able to help the scalp condition. And if you tackle it early enough, you might be able to slow or halt the hair loss that you're seeing. All right, so I hope this information was informative for you. I hope it opened your eyes to something maybe you weren't thinking about in your hair loss research. Remember, a healthy scalp skin is the starting point to any of these hair loss protocols, whether you're taking finasteride, minoxidil, or looking at scalp treatments like scalp micropigmentation or hair transplantation. It starts with healthy skin. Again, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments section. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. I will be talking to you all very soon. Take care.